I know that you're a signatory to some of the groups like the 350, and there's other groups called Beyond Talk that are going to be trying to draw attention to what needs to happen at Copenhagen in December. So I'm just wondering if you think that you have any optimism that the heads of state are going to do anything substantive in Copenhagen, or if we should maybe put our hope in grassroots efforts like the ones that you're involved.
We are talking very soon after the Bangkok negotiations. And the Bangkok negotiations have ended up in stalemate because the rich countries are trying to get out of even their Kyoto protocols. What Copenhagen is supposed to negotiate is beyond Kyoto. How much more should they reduce emissions? Kyoto was about 5% reduction by 2012. We know that if we have to limit temperature increase to 2 degrees, then 350 parts per million is all we can really afford, which means more than 80 to 90% reduction on 1990 basis. So instead of fulfilling that obligation, the rich countries, particularly the United States and Europe, are trying to get out of the United Nations Framework Convention. They're trying to get out of the Kyoto Protocol and are pretending to start something new when what is being negotiated is the climate treaty that was adopted in 1992 at the Earth Summit. So I'm not terribly hopeful that suddenly these warring groups are going to make peace with each other in 2 months' time. I do believe we need to continue pressure on national governments, because out of that comes an international architecture. I believe we are at a time where citizens must lead. And citizens have to lead through action, citizens have to lead through imagination, citizens have to lead through establishing what I have called Earth democracy, a democracy in which we make our national governments accountable, we take local action, but we also work collectively as a global Earth community. And I think while the governments are fighting each other and not coming to an agreement, if tomorrow we sat with activists from around the world, we'd have an agreement. We'd have an agreement that would show that an agriculture that is organic is a solution to climate change. It mitigates and adapts. Public transport serves the poor. It also reduces emissions. And the beauty of every one of these climate solutions is it works for the poor, it works for the disenfranchised, and it works for the climate. The big interests would like to turn this into their opportunity. I know Monsanto's trying to sell Roundup as a climate solution, and we have a wonderful slogan for that: no toxics in climate solution. Don't make climate solutions toxic all over again. They're not going to give up very easily, because greed is their very reason for existence. And greed allows corruption. Greed allows influence. And what we need is the truth of Gaia, the truth of the planet, to become the basis of our actions. So we have a planetary obligation, and I think we share it as movements around the world. We have an international agreement that's fumbling. We have national democracies which can make change. You see in your country, you managed to get the Bush regime out. And then all the freedom of local action, which we haven't explored enough.
Maybe just by way of wrapping up, because I think within the US there's an awful lot of folks who maybe wouldn't disagree with your analysis, but when it comes to sort of what we do, they still sort of tend to put their hope in kind of the market, that it's just a matter of buying the right kind of product, buying green, if you will, sort of a language that's used a lot here. So it's another way of sort of promoting sort of green capitalism, in other words, the market being the solution to just sort of getting us out of this dilemma we're in. So I'm just wondering how you would respond to folks in the US who sort of think that maybe what that for them what they need to do is to purchase their way out of these sort of global problems. I mean, what message would you have for them?
The first thing is for anyone to put faith in the market after September 2008 isn't seeing what's happening, isn't seeing that the market isn't working, that the market is hugely flawed. They aren't listening to economists like Joseph Stiglitz, who have got a Nobel Prize. They're not listening to economists like Ostrom, who got the Nobel Prize this year, showing that there are systems beyond the market, particularly systems of community governance, systems of participatory management of the commons. The most important issue is that I think the market has shrunk us. The market has shrunk our capacities. We were made to believe that our role on this planet is merely as consumers, buy our way out of anything. But we are more than consumers. We are shapers and creators. We are makers of things. We can be co-creators with nature. And I think the real challenge is, how do we become once more part of productive communities where conservation, sharing, recovery of the commons, and having a higher quality of life through all of this is where we go next. Assuming that you will buy your way out is assuming corporations will continue to control the world. It is assuming that you are powerless in other political ways except through buying, but we are powerful, and we need to exercise those other powers of direct democracy.